Snow whispered across the abandoned mountain road, hissing against the metal plates of a man who no longer belonged to the world he once defended. Daniel Cross moved like a storm given shape, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. His rifle hung at his side, its barrel darkened by years of use, the etchings on the grip worn smooth by his hand. Above him, the sky trembled with distant flashes, alien ships descending through the clouds, each one a spear of light stabbing into the earth. Humanity's elite armies had fallen silent 3 days ago. Command centers had gone dark. The only voice left on the emergency frequency was static. He had tried to ignore it, tried to let the world die without him. But silence didn't sit right with Daniel. Not after 30 years of service and 17 more pretending he could forget what it meant to fight. He had promised his late wife he'd stay out of it. "You've given enough," she'd said, touching the scar that ran down his face. But some debts weren't measured in time. They were measured in resolve. The radio on his chest crackled again. A woman's voice, faint, trembling. If anyone can hear this, please, they're inside the perimeter." Static swallowed her words. Daniel's gloved hand closed around the transmitter. His voice, gravel and rust, cut through the storm. "Hold your position. I'm on my way." He didn't ask where. He didn't need to. The signal came from Echo Base, one of the last human defense outposts in the Rockies. He had helped design it during the war years, before politics and peace treaties convinced everyone they'd never need men like him again. The trail grew steeper as he climbed, snow crunching beneath his boots. Pines loomed like sentinels, their branches heavy with frost. He passed the rusted skeleton of an old drone, its sensor shattered, its insignia still visible. United Earth Legion. He remembered training the first generation of those machines. How proud he'd been to see men replaced by logic and precision. But machines didn't bleed for each other. They didn't adapt when the world went wrong. That was the difference. That was why Daniel Cross still mattered. When he reached the ridge, he saw them. 3 alien patrols sweeping through the valley below, their armor pulsing with blue light. Each one moved like a shadow, silent, efficient, their weapons scanning the horizon for movement. The invaders had underestimated humans at first, called them carbon primitives. That was before the Legion's last stand in orbit. Before Daniel and his squad tore apart an entire Vanguard fleet with scavenged artillery and desperation. They had learned then that humans didn't fight for victory. They fought because surrender wasn't an option. Daniel crouched, steadying his breath. The old instincts returned easily, sliding into place like a weapons magazine. He marked targets, studied the wind, counted his ammunition. His heart didn't race, it settled. The years had taken his youth, but sharpened his patience. He watched one alien detach from the group, moving toward a buried transmitter half hidden in the snow. A reconnaissance unit. He waited until it turned its back, then exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The sound was swallowed by the storm. The alien fell without a cry, its blue light fading to black. The others turned, scanning wildly, but Daniel was already gone, moving along the ridge, a ghost of flesh and steel. He reached the frozen entrance to Echo Base just as another transmission came through. Clearer this time. "Whoever you are, you won't make it inside. They've breached the lower hangar." Daniel wiped snow from his visor and smiled faintly. "Then I'll start there." The wind howled as he descended into the valley, alone against an army. The lower hangar of Echo Base was a tomb of steel and silence, the kind that carried the echo of battles long past. Daniel moved through it with practiced stealth, boots soundless on the frosted metal floor. The air smelled of ozone and burned circuitry, evidence of a fight that ended too quickly. Crumpled exosuits lay scattered among spent magazines and blackened panels. The aliens hadn't just attacked. They had dissected everything in their path, learning, adapting. He crouched beside one of the fallen soldiers. The armor bore the insignia of the new generation, sleeker, smarter, and, apparently, still just as mortal. The visor had been torn open, clean and efficient. Daniel's jaw tightened. He'd trained men to survive worse odds. But training only worked when fear didn't take hold. He reached down and pressed 2 fingers to the soldier's chest, whispering, "Rest easy, kid," before standing again. A faint metallic scrape broke the stillness. Daniel pivoted, rifle raised, eyes narrowing at the movement behind a row of supply crates. He advanced slowly, the rifle steady. When the figure stepped into view, hands raised, Daniel paused. It wasn't an alien. It was a woman in half-burned armor, helmet gone, blood dried along her temple. "Don't shoot," she rasped, voice raw with exhaustion. "Lieutenant Mara Keene, 7th Recon. You're not supposed to be here." "Neither are you," Daniel replied, lowering his weapon. He scanned her quickly. Minor injuries, shaken but capable. "How many left?" She swallowed hard. "You're looking at them." Her gaze flicked to the insignia on his vest, the faded eagle of the old Legion. "Wait, are you cross?" The cross. He didn't answer. The name carried too much weight, and none of it helped now. He motioned for her to follow. "We're not staying here. You got comms access." "Damaged," she said, limping after him. The central uplink was destroyed when they breached the hangar. "Command's gone. They took our AI core too." Daniel stopped cold. "They took it." "Yeah," she said bitterly. "Dragged it out like a prize. Guess they finally realized our tech's worth more than our lives." He clenched his jaw. The AI cores were tactical hubs, repositories of every strategy, code, and battlefield pattern humanity had ever compiled. If the aliens cracked one, they'd learn how to predict human behavior. The war wouldn't just be lost, it would never have a second chance. They reached the elevator shaft leading to the command tier. Power flickered erratically, each pulse casting fractured shadows along the walls. Daniel pried opened the doors and looked down the dark shaft. "Climb," he said. Mara frowned. "You sure this thing's stable?" "No," he said. "That's why we're not waiting." They descended in silence, metal creaking under their weight. Halfway down, the structure shuddered. A low hum filled the air. Alien drones, scanning for survivors. Daniel froze, signaling Mara to hold still. The light from above brightened, a thin blue beam slicing through the darkness. When it passed, he resumed climbing, his movements deliberate and controlled. At the base of the shaft, they emerged into the command level. The room was half destroyed, its glass walls shattered, screens flickering with ghost signals. Snow drifted in through a broken viewport. Amid the wreckage stood an alien machine, tall, insectal, its limbs bending at unnatural angles as it extracted data from a damaged console. Mara's breath hitched. "We can't take that thing head-on." Daniel adjusted his rifle. "We're not going to." He scanned the floor, spilled coolant, ruptured conduits, an active power cell. He pulled a grenade from his belt and handed it to her. "On my mark, toss it near the coolant line. Timing matters." She nodded, trembling slightly. Daniel took aim, exhaled, and fired a single round into the power cell. Sparks erupted, and heat rushed through the room. "Now," he barked. The grenade arced perfectly. The explosion was contained, but devastating. Blue fire washed over the alien machine, twisting it into molten scrap. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of surviving systems rebooting. Mara looked at him, eyes wide. "You planned that." Daniel checked his weapon. "Improvised." He glanced toward the corridor, leading deeper into the base. "They have the AI core. We're getting it back." They moved through the corridor, where the lights flickered like dying stars, Daniel leading, Mara covering their rear. The base groaned around them, metal contracting under cold and damage. Daniel felt the old awareness sharpen, every sound weighted with meaning. He remembered this place as blueprints and simulations, not as a grave. Mara watched him closely, noting how he never hesitated, never rushed, as if the chaos obeyed his pace. "You fight like you've already lost," she whispered. "No," he said quietly. "A fight like loss isn't allowed anymore." Ahead, alien voices clicked through the walls, sharp and methodical. Daniel signaled a halt and knelt, studying scorch marks on the floor. "They're hurting us," Mara said, trying to see how we respond. Daniel nodded. "Good," he replied. "Let them learn the wrong lesson." His fingers tightened on the rifle, anticipation steady, controlled, familiar, welcome in the silence before violence returned. They advanced into the command tunnel, where the AI core's cradle stood empty and scarred. Mara's jaw set as she traced the damage, anger replacing exhaustion. That thing ran our defenses, she said. It knew us. Daniel studied the alien glyphs burned into the walls. Now it knows pieces, he replied. Not the whole. A tremor rippled through the base, distant but deliberate. Heavy units moving. Daniel checked their route, choosing narrower passages, forcing close engagement. He handed Mara a charge. You trust me? He asked. She met his gaze without hesitation. I do now. The trust surprised them both. As they moved, Daniel felt the weight of command settle again, a mantle he never asked to reclaim. He wasn't fighting for Earth's victory. He was fighting so this young soldier wouldn't inherit only ashes. The corridor seemed to narrow, as if the base itself judged him in cold silence. The alien struck in coordinated waves, sleek forms flooding the passage with blue fire and precise motion. Daniel stepped forward to meet them, drawing attention, counting heartbeats. Mara followed his signals instinctively, placing charges, firing only when necessary. An alien blade grazed Daniel's shoulder, heat searing through armor and memory alike. He grunted but smiled grimly, adjusting stance. Pain meant he was still alive. He used the walls, the floor, the enemy's rigidity, turning their discipline into a trap. When they fell back, confused and broken, the tunnel was littered with smoking remains. Mara stared at him, awe-tempered by fear. How are you doing this? She asked. Daniel reloaded slowly. I've had a long time to learn what survives, he said. His voice carried neither pride nor bitterness, only certainty forged by endings he refused to repeat again, ever now that the war had found him once more alone. They reached the outer platform as alarms failed into silence, the storm pressing close. Beyond the broken railing, an alien transport hovered, the stolen AI core glowing within its containment field. Escape. Mara looked at Daniel, understanding the cost before he spoke. I'll cover you, he said. She shook her head. We both make it. He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm, final. That's not how this works. He stepped forward as alien cannons charged, standing alone against the light. Mara ran, screaming his name, as Daniel raised his rifle one last time. He felt no regret, only resolve. If one man was enough, this would prove it. The wind roared, carrying fire and fate together, while the galaxy unknowingly waited for a lesson written in human defiance and sacrifice, a beginning disguised as an ending that would echo far beyond this frozen mountain world forever. Remembered, feared, repeated. Mara ran until her lungs burned and the world dissolved into noise. Then the mountain shook hard enough to throw her against the snow. Heat rolled over the ridge, followed by a thunderous crack that split the sky. She turned in time to see the alien transport spiraling, its containment field collapsing as fire tore through its hull. It vanished into the forest below, a falling star extinguished in silence. The shockwave carried with it the end of Echo Base, the command level folding inward, sealing its dead and its defender beneath tons of stone and ice. She screamed once, raw and broken, then forced herself to stand. Daniel had given her time, and time was something she refused to waste. Hours later, extraction found her half-frozen and clutching the AI core's emergency backup drive, its casing scorched but intact. She didn't speak during the ascent, didn't answer the medic's questions. Only when the dropship cleared the clouds did she finally look down, searching the mountains for something that no longer existed. Daniel Cross was gone, just another name swallowed by classified files and unmarked graves. Yet the silence he left behind felt deliberate, like the pause after a final warning. The alien coalition learned quickly. Their surviving commanders reviewed sensor logs frame by frame, replaying the battle until confidence curdled into dread. One human, outdated equipment, no reinforcements. The data contradicted every model they trusted. Their analysts identified the pattern too late. Humans did not centralize threat in hierarchy or numbers. They embedded it in individuals shaped by loss and endurance. The designation retired was flagged, redefined as a strategic anomaly. Engagement protocols were rewritten overnight. Earth was no longer listed as a conquest candidate, but as a cautionary example. Mara recovered slowly, carrying Daniel's rifle tag in her pocket like a talisman. When she returned to service, she declined promotion and asked instead for a training command. She taught recruits how to think beyond doctrine, how to fight when systems failed and hope thinned. She told them stories without names, lessons without glory. Victory, she would say, is surviving long enough to protect someone else. When asked about the old legion, she only nodded, eyes distant, as if listening to a voice carried on the wind. Earth never announced the battle. No monuments were raised in the mountains, no speeches broadcast to the stars. But something shifted quietly. Defensive grids were rebuilt with redundancies that relied on people, not predictions. Veterans were recalled, not to fight but to teach. Humanity's message spread without words, carried by alien whispers and revised star charts. Do not test a species that leaves its dead behind, yet remembers why they stood. Years later, Mara returned alone to the ridge where it ended. Snow covered everything, gentle and indifferent. She planted a simple marker, metal against stone, then stepped back. The world felt vast again, uncertain, unfinished. She understood now what Daniel had known all along. Humanity's strength was not its armies, nor its machines, nor its victories. It was the willingness of one tired person to stand when standing no longer made sense. As the wind erased her footprints, the lesson remained, waiting for the next mistake bold enough to summon it.